A chessboard is one of the most recognized symbols in Freemasonry. According to the Masonic order, the board's colors represent the duality between good and bad, with the members of the order bringing balance to the world. But I have a different take on it. What I believe is that they see political takeovers as competitions. Every move they make is carefully planned years ahead, along with its consequences.
Checkmate.
The winner of a chess match is normally the player that looks at all of the available moves and can plan the highest number of moves ahead. A player that sees one move ahead can only react to the current state of the game without having a long-term strategy. A player that can see two moves ahead will anticipate their opponent's reaction to their play. Someone who sees four moves ahead will be able to set traps to their opponents. In this video, I will teach you one of the most powerful techniques to win confrontations. This technique can be used in many different scenarios, and what you're going to learn is a mindset that you can apply the next time you're dealing with an authority figure that considers themselves to be smarter than you. If you think of the level of chess players as an analogy to real-life conflicts, you can find similarities to people you know. Let's start with the worst kind of player. Sadly, this player can be recognized in the majority of the world's population. The kind of player I'm talking about is someone that thinks 0 moves ahead. What do I mean by that? A player that thinks 0 moves ahead allows their opponent to move their pieces for them. How do you end up letting your opponent move your pieces? This happened because your opponent manipulated and convinced you that the two of you are working towards a similar goal. What they need to do is finding a fake reason that will convince you to allow them access to your pieces.
As we celebrate our true heroes, the healthcare and frontline essential community workers. And you can take action too. To show your support for the Solidarity Response Fund and frontline workers everywhere, go to act.me right now.
What you need to do in order to not be a player that sees 0 moves ahead is to realize who is manipulating you and, despite what he claims, is not interested in your well-being. If you let anyone else do the thinking for you, whether it's your insurance salesman, doctor, or politician, there's always the risk of being manipulated. And after you recognize who is the worst kind of player, let me introduce to you the best kind of player. This person is Dan Ariely. He is an advisor to the World Economic Forum and an expert in game theory and human psychology. As an expert in these fields, he knows how to manipulate people and get the best outcome for himself in a given situation. Looking at his unique appearance, you probably wonder about his education. This guy has a PhD in cognitive psychology and a second PhD in business administration. He is a professor for behavioral econometrics who was giving courses in this field in Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Duke University. In an experiment that was conducted by Ariely, he asked people to bid for a $100 bill. The rules stated that the highest bid gets the bill, but both the highest and second highest bids have to pay. If you bid $70 and someone else bids 80 and wins, the one who bids 80 will make a $20 profit. But Ariely will get $150, making $50 profit, and you lose $70. When both bidders see only one move ahead, they keep bidding to the point of losing money. They will believe they compete against each other and fail to see the trap that Ariel is set for them. This experiment gives a good example of this professor's mindset. He is the kind of chess player who sets traps that his opponents will not notice until it's too late. Just imagine how easy it is to compete against an opponent that doesn't realize you're playing against them. Now, what the fuck happened to his face, right? As the story goes, during his high school years, in one gathering of the youth movement he was a member of, the kids were playing with fireworks, and one of the explosions injured him, causing third-degree burns that covered 70% of his body. Following this incident, Ariely was hospitalized for a period of 3 years. He claims that when the bandages that covered his face were taken off, it happened too quickly and too soon, even though he begged his nurses to be gentle when they removed them. Besides traumatizing him and leaving him with scars on his face, the choice made by his nurses made him interested in human psychology. After putting some thought into why they acted this way, he concluded that the nurses were either too busy to deal with slow removal of the bandages, or they just wanted to minimize the time of having to see their patient's pain. While this anecdote appears like a well-written supervillain origin story, the fact that it sounds like Stan Lee came up with it makes me doubt its authenticity. Is this what truly happened, or is it another one of this professor's manipulations? And this is the type of person who is advising the world's leaders, a man who is the best in his field and can think 20 moves ahead. This is the sort of people we are competing against, some of the most educated and talented people out there. Thanks to these advisors and their knowledge, most people were convinced that their interests are aligned with those of the government. That's how we found ourselves in a situation where the public didn't realize that it was being played against, so it allowed its pieces on the board to be moved to wherever the government said was necessary.
COVID-19 has had a devastating impact. The pandemic has been a cruel reminder that in an interconnected world, what affects one of us can affect all of us.
Smile though your heart is breaking. Days will end. Smile even though it's life. In the sky, you'll get by. If you smile, you'll feel small. Smile, I'll make it
And now, after people noticed that those who claim to help them are their enemies, our position on the board is much worse than how it was before the hoax. Now that we know what's going on, we have to learn to plan our moves better. Take the example of an encounterment with a police officer who decided to beat you up. A stupid cop that thinks only one move ahead will come and fight you without a justified cause. If he's unlucky enough to be recorded on video, he might face legal consequences in a lawsuit against him. A smarter cop will think 2 moves ahead. He will provoke you in order to get an excuse to engage in violence. Basically, he is setting a trap for you. If you manage to read his moves, you can avoid this trap by seeing more moves ahead. A more complex example will be the one of a government that makes an unpopular decision for seemingly no reason. For almost 2 years, governments all over the world did everything in their power to destroy their tourism industry. On the surface, this decision makes no sense. Now there are more unemployed citizens to support. But looking at this deeper, empty facilities that used to be hotels can be used as detainment centers for certain groups. What I want to do with this video is to make you take a step back and think ahead. Reacting only to what is said on the news means you're thinking one move ahead and probably falling into a trap. The next time you hear the news, think for a second about what you're being shown. What is this article all about? Can you see why it was put there? What reaction are you expected to have? If you want to start winning confrontations against your opponents, be the player that sees all options and constructs the longest decision tree.